What is up, YouTube? My name is G3 Iron, and today we are going to take a look at some of the ways that you can be aware of that people try to scam people in trades in Path of Exile. Today I'm going to start out actually with just a brief story about the history of why conning somebody is called conning them, or why it's called being a con man when you swindle someone or take advantage of somebody. So just a brief story, and then we'll get into some specific scams that different people try every single league, and I would like you all to be aware of these so that way you hopefully don't get scammed. So this is a post composed way back in September 22 of 2015, and this is a great summary of this story, so that's what I'm quoting from. The link is down below for proper citation. So Mark asks, why do we call people who scam other people out of something a con man? And the answer is, quote, have you confidence in me to trust me with your watch until tomorrow? With these 13 words politely expressed, as often as not, William Thompson would acquire another watch. Of course, Thompson wasn't even close to the first to run such a daringly simple scheme, but his bold method of gaining his Mark's trust led a writer in the June 8, 1849 edition of the New York Herald to pen a piece, Arrest of the Confidence Man, giving us the first known documented instance of the term confidence man. Within a decade, Herman Melville published his novel, The Confidence Man, which popularized the phrase. Over time, this has been shortened to the familiar con man or conman and the derivative of con artist. Schemes like Thompson's have been around for seemingly as long as humans have had assets to swindle one another, with various names for the scammers popping up over the centuries. As for early on in the United States before Thompson, con men were commonly called diddlers, after a character, Jeremy Diddler, from the 1803 play Raising the Wind. Okay. So this is where we get the phrase or the term con man from. It is essentially taking advantage of somebody else's confidence in you. Now, there are a couple of different cons in POE, and I'm going to be referencing, because this is a beautifully well-written Reddit post, this beautiful post from TrinityXoXo about how to be aware and really look out for different scams that are attempted. Then we're going to go over what some of these trade window interactions may look like. So, as many people are talking about these subjects and some players fall into traps such as price fixing or trade scamming, here's a short guide explaining the most common scams. So, first off, scam prevention. There are different types of scams in Path of Exile. The most common are trade window scams, Parandus coin scams, crafting scams, and buy, sell, run, boss challenge scams. Now, for those of you that were unaware, Parandus is back in Betrayal, which means that Parandus coin scams are going to be live. So for those of you that are vets, you know what that means. For those of you that are new, it simply means that there's yet another way that scammers are going to try and take advantage of you as a person, but also take advantage of your confidence, hence the con artist or con man label this particular league. So trade window scams. This scam is very simple to avoid, yet very easy to fall for. When we map and we play the game, we go fast. When we make small trades, we often just hover our mouse cursor over the person's item, which we are trading with, very quickly, and accept the trade and move on. Most trade window scams are regarding expensive item trades, where the scammer knows that people often hover the item very quickly. So, to scam you, the scammer places an item that looks very much like the item you want to buy, but it's not, in fact, the same item. So, really quickly, showing you an example of this. For instance, when people swap things out of the trade screen. So let's say, for example, we're trading for an Alpha's Howl, right? So we put the Alpha's Howl inside the trade window. The other person says, hey, that's great. We're trading for an Alpha's Howl. And they put in whatever it is that they're trading back to us, right? Now, the scammer sometimes will say, oh, you've looked at the item, right? The item has been hovered over. You can see that the item has been hovered over, that it's going to be traded. But then they actually swap it out for another one. So let's say we really wanted this Alpha's Howl that had socketed AoE gems, but now they've socketed an Aura Gems one, right? It looks the same. It's very, very similar, but we can tell that there's a slight difference because the color socket is different. And if we read carefully we can see that the item is not actually the same. It doesn't have the same rolls and it doesn't have the same corruption on it. Now, whenever anything goes in or out of the trade window, you can see that you can't actually accept on the trade for a period of time. All right. There's actually a built-in function in the game that you have to mouse over, and if somebody else takes something out of the window, it goes on a 3-second delay before you can actually click accept again. All right. So a lot of the time when someone is trying to scam you with this sort of trade scam, there will be a quick placement of one item and then they will quickly swap it back out. You always want to double check the item. Whatever the item is, you want to double check it before you click accept, because that is a very simple way that people can scam. Another way that people can scam is by trading out the item that, again, looks similar, but maybe you don't have sockets to go on and the stats are very similar on the item. Obviously, this is with uniques. I have here 2 Eye of Chayulas. One of them has got a perfectly rolled implicit of 16 to all attributes. The other does not have a perfectly rolled implicit. It's 13. Now, does that make that big of a deal of it? No, you can spend a divine here or there. But for something that's a relatively cheap item, you don't want to waste any of your currency getting scammed. So yet another example of a potential trade window scam is with gem levels. So let's say, for instance, that you're trading for this level 21 corrupted controlled destruction support gem. Right, so we're very, very interested in this gem because it's hit the proper corruption for a +1 level, so now it's level 21 instead of level 22. That's a very, very valuable gem. However, if our trading partner wanted to scam us and they put in simply a regular gem, maybe it includes the level 1 in it, so we're not reading it well, we're not reading it carefully, we just see, oh yeah, it's got a 1 in there, so yeah, sure, we'll make that trade. They just traded us a level 1 gem for what could be hundreds of chaos or exalts if we're not paying attention. I'll give you another quick example of this. If somebody wants to be especially sneaky, you say, oh, well, Iron, I'm not going to fall for that because in order to get a corrupted gem or a level 21 gem, it would have to be corrupted. So I won't fall for that, right? See, it's level 21, it's corrupted. Oh, but look at this one. This one's corrupted too. It's a level 1 corrupted gem. So a scam artist, all they've got to do is buy a bunch of level 1 gems, corrupt them, and then throw them into the trade window for the desired price. It's a very, very sneaky, dirty thing to do that takes advantage of the confidence that you placed in them that the trade would be an authentic trade. Another example of this is actually going to be in the number of sockets that are in very specific gear. So I've got an example here with a lore weave. Right now I am using this lore weave, which is a 6-link, versus this other lore weave, which is not a 6-link. It's 6-socket, but it is not 6-linked. That's going to make a big difference in terms of the price and the value of the piece of gear. So somebody simply puts in the 6 link. We say, oh yeah, that looks great. Everything looks good to go. They can swap it out and all of a sudden, oh yeah, wait a minute. That looks slightly different. Now, oftentimes if somebody tries to scam you by swapping out the window like this, it's pretty obvious because, again, there's that 3-second delay. So what some folks will straight up try and do is they'll just straight up click on the item that they are selling and then click accept as soon as you put whatever amount of money that's in there that they believe their scam is worth. So if we were selling a 6-linked and 6-socketed lore weave, and we were selling that for, let's say, I don't know, 7x, they put in, instead, the scammer puts in this un-6-linked lore weave, and they sell it. Maybe we only put in like the 5x, but they hit accept. And you might be wondering, why are they giving me a discount on this? Well, it's because as a scammer, they just want any kind of profit that they can get, and the profit that they're getting even off of this is quite a lot higher. So a lot of the times you need to slow down and not be overconfident that you're getting too good of a deal, because in reality, it is too good of a deal and you're on the wrong end of it. Okay, so you want to be aware of that if a scammer just goes to place the item in the trade window and clicks accept too fast. For those of you that are saying, oh, you're being paranoid, Iron, this is way too much over the top, all I'm trying to say is take 1 or 2 extra moments to take a look at your trade window when you're interacting with especially high-priced gear, especially early on in the league, because early on in the league, basically everything is high-priced because you don't have a huge bank of stuff saved up for yourself yet. So just take a few extra moments to double check, hey, is the level on this gem correct? Are the sockets the correct color on that item? Are the links all the correct links that I'm looking for? Are the stats all the same stats that we're looking for? Is this the same item that they originally put in the trade window? If they swapped it out, did they mean to swap it out? Oftentimes, this will happen to me whenever I'm doing currency flipping or selling maps. I'll put in the wrong map into the trade window or the wrong amount of currency. So let's say somebody wanted to trade 200 chaos instead of 300 chaos. Sometimes I'll put in extra, or sometimes I'll put in too little because I've got so many people that are coming through and making trades. That's why it's so great that the trade window and the chat window will have a record of people that have sent you their request. So you can go in and take a look and say, oh, what was that exact amount that they were wanting to interact with? As well as POE tools. I've got a video on this, but Mercury Trade does a great job of also recording in a third-party setting the exact trade amount and the ratio even amount of currency that you're flipping. So that way you hopefully never put the wrong amount of currency inside a trade window. Another trade scam that often will happen, this happens particularly when you're flipping currency, is that somebody will simply put in too few of the particular currency that you're flipping. So if you needed 100 chaos and you're missing this, well, right here we've got 90, and you can know because chaos converts 10 chaos into every one slot, which means in order to fill up one line, we get 50 chaos. If you fill up 2 lines, you get to 100 chaos. Well, one way that scammers interact with this is they simply will put in 1 chaos in that final slot. So in other words, if you're trading something for 90 is what they're actually trading for, but they're hoping that it's 100, they're getting the benefit here of 9 extra chaos that you're not spending simply because they broke up the stack and they turned it into 1 extra chaos. Again, if you just take a moment and you look at your trade window and you go, wait a minute, these are all 10, but this one's a 1. I shouldn't click accept on this. I should click cancel and say, hey, was this the price that we agreed upon? You don't necessarily need to assume someone is a scammer right away. Again, like I said, oftentimes people simply make a mistake. And there are far more people that I've traded with throughout my whole time playing Path of Exile, far more instances of a simple mistake being made than somebody trying to scam you. But what you don't want to be is on the wrong end of a scam with somebody who then isn't going to interact with you once the trade has already gone through. Most of the time, if somebody makes a mistake, somebody will go, oh, I made a mistake. Let me make sure that we're doing this trade properly, because they also want to be patient and make sure that they're getting the right end and the right amount of currency in the trade. All right, so that's trade window scams. Okay, you can easily fall for it, but it's very, very simple. Parandis coin scams. Okay, this is particularly relevant for us in Betrayal League because Parandis is back. This scam has existed since the coins were introduced. It works as following. Many people buy coins when they find Kadairo and he's offering them a good price. Let's say you find Kadairo and he's offering you a taste of hate for a very good deal. So you go to buy coins and then you go back to your instance and buy the item from him. Well, since this is why most coins are purchased and everyone knows it, there is a scam that can take place. When you message the person you want to buy coins from, the scammer already has an accomplice ready. As soon as you join the party with the scammer and buy coins from him, he has another person in party already or invited them during your trade. While you are buying coins from the scammer, the third person in the party enters your hideout and then through your map portals finds your Kadairo and buys the item he's offering themselves. This scam is much more elaborate than the trade window scam and is much harder to prevent if you don't know about how it works already. But there are still ways to make this scam completely ineffective. The first way, okay, here's the first way to fight off this scam. The first way is to open your hideout menu while in your hideout before purchasing coins. Then you can select an option to disallow party members from visiting your hideout. The second way is to prevent this is to add the coin seller to your friends list instead of party. Then you visit their hideout and trade with them through your friends list and you never invite them to the party. The third way is to block your map device with decorations in your hideout to make it so nobody can enter the portals. However, this one is risky since movement spells can get through in ways that you hadn't thought of. So what will often happen is multiple people will have their map device open, and a lot of people, what they'll do is they'll try and block off their map device. This is actually one of the reasons that this is one of the reasons. There's several others, but this is one of the reasons why I keep my map device way up at the top of my hideout. I know it's kind of obnoxious for the rest of people that are trying to interact with me or use the stash tab or the map device, but adding just even a little bit of extra time in between the time when somebody's going to travel to your waypoint, find your map device, or interact with the stash if they need to rush and grab something. For me, what I've found is it's a minor inconvenience for people who are actually doing legitimate, genuine trades, but it has been enough to deter people from coming into my hideout and grabbing my map portal devices intentionally or accidentally. Oftentimes when people are inside hideouts, it is not at all uncommon for people to place their hideout device right next to their waypoint because they want to be trading with people and have them come through very quickly. And the reality is a lot of the times when people go to click on the bottom right-hand side of their POE window, they'll go to click accept, and maybe they might miss. So a lot of people will put their map device like in the bottom right-hand side of their hideout. And the reality of it is if they miss clicking the accept trade, and I'm sure some of you out there have misclicked before, you'll start running in that direction. So if you've placed a portal over there, somebody may accidentally click on a portal rather than clicking on accept trade. It's not because somebody's necessarily trying to rush through your portal. I've gone into other people's maps by accident and done that simply because as I go to click on accept or decline trade, or somebody else sends me a friend request, or somebody else sends me a party invite in the middle of a trade, that will happen. So just move your map device to an area where it won't necessarily accidentally be clicked on. It can buy you some extra time as well in prevention of these scams. Okay, other types of scams, crafting scams. Sometimes we want to craft stats on an item, but our own masters are too leveled to craft them. Now, this is going to be something that's going to change inside Betrayal. I can already guarantee you that with all of the different veiled mods and veiled progressions out there, that people are going to still try and scam people on crafting. Okay, so just because the old way of crafting and the old master crafting is gone, doesn't mean that there won't be scammers trying to take advantage of this. So this is still good info for us in Betrayal. We need help from somebody else who maybe has got access to crafting help that we don't. This means that you first need to entrust your item to what is a complete stranger and then let them craft on it. The scammer claims that they will craft on your item, but instead they just take the item from you and they don't give it back. The absolute worst thing you could possibly do is to ask in any chat channel such as global channels or trade for crafting help. Do not do this ever, okay? I'm looking at you right now, new player that is just starting Path of Exile. Don't give somebody your items. Just don't give them to them, okay? Not even me, okay? Don't say, oh, well, I'm going to join the G3 clan and I trust Iron because he's on YouTube. No. Don't trust me. Don't trust anybody with your stuff right away. Just don't do it. You don't know the value of the stuff that you have. Can you trade that stuff? Sure, absolutely. Can you give it to somebody? No. Never give somebody something just straight up. Don't ever do it. What you should do is instead find trusted sellers. So the Path of Exile forums under the trading section, then in shops of your corresponding league. You can also find it on the communities tab on the forums. There you can find a lot of trusted sellers with many people vouching for the sellers. Okay, there's a lot of different threads where people will use in order to have vouching services. Though the one thing that I will say in that regard is if you need something crafted, you should be looking to join a guild, and you should that guild should be with people that you trust, that you're going to hand stuff to, and if they don't give it back, you're okay with that. So I'll give you an example of this. In the G3 guild, we actually had a couple of people that this happened to this league where they asked me to corrupt things for them to put them together for a video, and that was fine, but there had to be enough trust there that I wasn't going to take an item from them and then give them a badly corrupted item back and keep their good item without corrupting it, right? Like even that would be a scam. So there's lots of different ways where dishonesty can happen when you're interacting with other players in Rayclast. Part of that is cool because part of that is the harsh nature of Rayclast and Path of Exile. So in conceptual form, that's cool. But the reality is nobody likes coming away from a scenario where they go, oh, I was taken advantage of in that scenario. Oh, I lost out on a currency or on items or on an exchange rate on something. Nobody feels great about that. So conceptually, like the toughness of Rayclast is a cool idea. but nobody actually likes experiencing it firsthand. So never, 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 never just give something that is your own to somebody else. You can trade with somebody, but don't just give it to them. And if you're looking on more ways to learn about trading and the values of different things, you can always check out our playlist on Bank of Exile and the principles of POE economics. Okay, boss challenges and run scams. This is a scam where the scammer claims to sell a boss run, a challenge, or a certain map or achievement for a price. After you pay them, they leave or they go AFK. You never get what you paid for. This scam works both ways. There are people who do not pay when they're buying these things too. To prevent this from happening, when you are a buyer, we do the same thing as we did with the crafting scenario. We buy what we want from trusted people. You can find trusted sellers under the Communities tab on the POE forums. Some good advice is to add sellers you found trustworthy to your friends list, because most of these people play and sell every league, so you won't have to find new people every time you want to buy. Every single league, I have about 5 to 12 people that will PM me and say, hey, you're playing Path of Exile again. This is great. We traded last league. I don't still have them added to my friends list, but apparently they do, or they've saved my name somehow. Like I don't know, or maybe they just recognize my name from the POE search function, because I usually have little funny macros that I send back after trading with people. So maybe people remember those. I don't know. But I've got a regular client base of people that will interact and that will trade with me, whether that's flipping currency, whether that's flipping items. With last league, it was collecting unique rings for Loreweave, where all I had to do was put it in my status that I was buying unique rings for Loreweave, and people kept coming back to me weeks and weeks into the league. So there's a way in which you can get to know essentially your shopkeeper and know that it's a trusted individual that's not going to take advantage of you. So that's a great thing. If you're the seller and you want to avoid people not paying for your run, I suggest that you take the payment before you start whatever run you are selling and have good portal placement for the buyers to avoid items getting snatched. But then comes the issue of, if you're not known as a trustworthy seller, then people might have a problem trusting you. You need to build a reputation of sorts before people will fully trust you. And that's a good thing. I think that's a good thing. In a game where there's so many different ways, both for simply accidents to happen, but then also for con people to take advantage of those accidents, it doesn't hurt to say, hey, I flipped currency with this person. I'm going to try and flip other currency with this person in the future, or I'm going to play alongside this other person and add them onto my friends list, and we'll see if they're on, they're the person that'll go to trade with. Chances are, if somebody's got a good ratio, especially for flipping currency or flipping items, they're going to have a good ratio throughout the league because they're probably pretty knowledgeable about the economy. That's not a in cement rule. That's not something that's in stone. But that's a general rule, that if somebody's trying to price things competitively so they move quickly, they're probably going to do that throughout the league. So once you meet one of those people, then you'll be able to have a good relationship moving forward. So there's no real solution to this type of scam scenario other than trying to sell cheap runs at first and build a base of people who trust you to vouch for you. If someone doesn't pay during your cheap runs, then you only lose a few chaos as opposed to if you did expensive runs. Okay, price fixing. This scam is pretty well known, and it works as following. The scammer will place a high value item up for a lower price than what it's actually worth on POE trade. Then they will wait for people to post the same item for a lower price than theirs and buy it immediately. The scammer never sells their price fixed item, even if you ask to buy it. Okay, I'm going to give you an example of this simply because I have this stash tab that I've been using as we made our 104 Vault Alpha's Howls. So this stash tab, as you notice, is fixed. It's at a fixed price of price 1 chaos. Technically, right now, I am technically on this train selling a bunch of stuff that's worth way more than 1 chaos. Like these Alpha's Howls are +1 maximum power charges. This one's +2 to aura gems. This is +2 to socketed durations. And then these were also over here, the AoE, as well as another aura gem. Like those are worth more than 1 chaos, even if it is standard league. Those are worth quite a bit more. So what a price fixer would try and do is list a whole bunch of Alpha's Howls on a trade website for 1 chaos and then hope that other people would also sell their Alpha's Howls at that same price. Then they would go in, acquire the Alpha's Howls, and then actually sell it for a much, much higher price down the road. People most often do this with maps. You most often see this with maps, where people will put maps at a very, very low price as opposed to what it's actually worth, and then using that new price of what the map is actually worth is what they're actually going to sell it at. And so they try to control the market that way. Now, there are scenarios where some people think that price fixing is happening, but it's actually not. A scenario where this is common is when someone finds a good rare item and posts it as the cheapest one compared to similar items on POE trade. So, in other words, if right now somebody messages me on standard and says, hey, I'd like to buy that really, really good, nice corrupted Alpha's Howl. Can you sell that for 1 chaos? I'm going to go, hey, sorry about that. I've mispriced it. Okay, but maybe there's some Alpha's Howls that I do want to sell for 1 chaos. And so I'll say, yes, because I want this item to move quickly, I'm willing to undercut the market and sell it for a cheaper price. Just because something is the cheapest doesn't necessarily mean that someone is price fixing. This is why this is kind of a borderline scam, where it's not actually scamming you as a player. It doesn't necessarily take advantage of your necessary confidence in that person, but it takes advantage of your lack of knowledge of what the actual asking price is for something. So the best way to deal with this is on trade websites to ignore people that you see have thousands of things listed, all of the same thing. So I do this every single league on the official Path of Exile trade website. There is a way that you can ignore specific users. And so there are people that will just sell various tiers of maps, and you know that it is, say, 1 to 2 to 3 alchemy to several chaos lower than what the actual going rate of the map is. And it's very, very simple. You just click ignore, and you don't see anything that person ever lists again. It's really, really nice, because then you don't have to worry about any of those price fixers. Okay, lastly, changed price whisper scam. Okay, so this scam was originally posted by user Arch Evil, and I completely forgot about it when Trinity originally posted this. So this is a common scam as well, and it works as following. The scammer will find any of your listed items on POE Trade and copy the message POE Trade gives them when they want to buy it. When they send the message, they change the price within it. So, for example, if you had an item listed for 30 chaos, they might change it to 15 chaos. They then hope you will not notice what you actually set the price of the items as and just trade it for the price they made up. To prevent this scam, when you take your items out of a stash to trade, always check the price on them by hovering your mouse over them. On the bottom of the item, it will say how much you have it listed for, i.e. the real price. If you have a lot of stash tabs, you can name them such things as 1C, 10C, 20C, etc. Then simply place the item within the tab corresponding to the value that you want to sell it at. So 10C items go in the 10C tab. This makes it so when a scammer sends you a whisper, you will instantly notice it's a scam, because the message will say, hi, I would like to buy X item listed for 15 chaos in X league, stash tab 30 chaos. It's very easy to see here that you've listed the item in a 30C tab, but the scammer is trying to sell it to buy it from you for 15. If they change more about the message, just be wary of in what price tab you have the item in and the price it's listed as when you sell items. Okay, so the general rule, right? The rule of thumb that you need to follow when you are trading in Path of Exile in order to avoid being scammed is make sure that you are reading the trade window. All right, that's the general rule. There are lots of different ways that mistakes can happen and people can try and scam you. It can be something as simple as somebody putting in the wrong divination card, right? Where you go, hey, wait a minute, is that the right div card? It can be something as simple as that, where you just want to take a minute, cancel the trade, and say, hey, let's slow down. Is that actually the thing that I was buying? You can go back in your search, in your chat history and in your chat window and say, was that actually the thing that I messaged you to buy? Or was that actually the thing that you messaged me to buy? So those are some tips to avoid getting scammed. The thumbnail portrait on this particular YouTube video is actually displaying Combs Way versus Combs Sign. I'd like to close the video just by showing you here on this character, CP Draconis, the difference, okay? Because there is none. This is Combs Way, right, that I'm wearing. I'm wearing 2 Combs Ways, all right? And now check on the Wikia, right? Here's the Wiki. It is ridiculous how similar these things are. This is Combs Way. And this is Combs Sign. Visually, they're the same thing, right? As I'm flipping between these. Visually and visually in-game, the actual art is the same. It looks the same. So this is just another example of, hey, take a deep breath when you're making a trade. Take 1 or 2 seconds to actually read the item. Because if you just look at Combs Way, somebody might actually be giving you a comb sign. So the short sum up to how to avoid getting scammed and how to avoid giving William Thompson any kind of place in history as a con man, or giving anybody inside POE history as a con man and giving them your hard-earned currency, your hard-earned items, is to just take a few extra moments and double check the trade window, because chances are it probably was a mistake, but if it wasn't, you don't want to be the one that's on the wrong end of a scam. Leave us a comment down below. Let us know. Have you ever been scammed? Are you a scammer? Have you ever accidentally traded somebody the wrong thing? I know I have, and a lot of the time it's really wonderful, because inside the POE community there's lots of people that are willing to say, hey, you actually traded me an extra chaos, or hey, you actually traded me the wrong amount. Is there any way that we can right this and make this right from the get-go and going forward? It's one of the things that I love about the POE community, is that people a lot of the time aren't looking to take advantage of each other, but you do need to keep your eyes peeled for when they do. Leave us a comment down below, and as always, subscribe for more POE videos.